It is not illegal for someone to seek asylum when they come to a country. It's not. It's not illegal. It's not. Second, it is.
As I received a phone call from the mayor's office last Wednesday evening, notifying me that the Lakeshore Hotel was going to be used to house migrants as early as September 5th, and then I heard today it could be as early as Friday. So we'll have folks from the city clarify that information. I found out on Wednesday, I immediately reached out to my team and said we need to have a meeting because there didn't seem to be a plan from the city to notify this community. And so we reached out, put out an invitation for a meeting, and then had conversations with a bunch of folks about what was happening in the community. Very limited information. The information I was given goes as follows, and then we'll pivot to the city. The Lakeshore Hotel was previously used as housing for migrants as early as this spring, which is why it was reconsidered now. Again, I was not involved in any conversations, negotiations, or discussions with the owner of the hotel. And that this location is going to serve somewhere around 300 individuals. So with that said, and again, like I said, I got very limited information from the city. So with that said, I'd like to introduce some folks from the city who might be able to answer some of your questions that you have. Those people are Jesus Del Toro, who's from the mayor's office of Immigrants and Refugee Rights, Deputy Chief Stephen Chung from the Chicago Police Department, and then I think we're going to have someone from the Department of Family and Support Services come up. So if we can have, oh, I'm sorry, I'd like to also recognize Alderman Andre Vasquez from the 40th Ward, who is probably the most knowledgeable alderman about what's going on around this crisis. Come on, okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute, I know, hold on. I know we all got some real tough feelings about what's going on.
Because I want to.
I'm just asking everybody to have a respectful conversation. Because it's going to be really hard for us to get information if we're not going to be respectful. Okay?
My name is Jesus Del Toro. I'm a policy fellow with the Mayor's Office of Migrant and Refugee Rights. And I've been supporting this work for a year now. Tomorrow will mark the first year of the bus arriving from Texas. And for the past year, over thousands of people have arrived to Chicago with no foundation to the city. And we've been asked as a city to come together to deal with quite an unprecedented situation. We understand that in the situation of this, informing the community could have been obviously a lot better and sooner, but it's been a matter of lack of beds. As you know, as you can probably see, our police stations have thousands of people staying there, and it has not been a situation for our police have tried their best to accommodate, but we're asking them essentially to become ad hoc housing experts. And so we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're looking for facilities that can support this mission. But I also want to reiterate the importance of federal action, because a lot of the remedies here are not going to come about just by the city of Chicago acting alone. We've had a lot of collaborative effort and support from the state and the county, mutual aid, different CBOs have come together, and we're trying our best. We are trying our best to meet the moment, but however, without some remedies from the federal action, whether it's funding or the ability for folks to work, we find ourselves in a hole. We're trying our best to figure out ways to think creatively, because the lack of federal inaction is causing cities to question, should we then perhaps think of a state-sponsored work permit, something to get folks up and running. So our goal is to be able to meet the basic needs, but also put folks' path into resettlement. We know that folks coming to Chicago are coming with different needs. I think some of the stories that maybe some of you have heard from folks migrating here, they're not easy. Coming to Chicago, the majority of folks are coming from Venezuela. and the conditions in that country, hyperinflation, political suppression, gang violence, all of those create you're right. But I want to be able to speak as to what creates this migration to the U.S. I'll also note that the U.S. is not the only destination where predominantly. Thank you on that point. There is this regional approach that we're trying our best to undertake, because we understand that this has to be a regional approach. The state of Illinois is a welcoming state, so we're talking to other cities and other towns to see how we can best approach the situation together. I do want to say thank you to the mutual aid organizations who have been supporting the police stations. I think it is, if you get a chance to see it, many of you have seen it already, it's just not an ideal situation for folks. We have kids, we have women, pregnant women sleeping on the floor. And so this hotel will be a temporary solution, but the goal is a path to resettlement. I'm here to try to answer any questions that you may have. I know the situation is quite dire. Buses keep coming to the city of Chicago. 2 showed up today, and it's been like that for several days, several weeks. And the lack of space is costing police stations, now O'Hare, now Midway, to be utilized as those spaces. And the alternative in my eyes, speaking for myself, is 14,000 people in Chicago on a house. That in itself creates another potential public safety situation, probably cost. And so at Chicago, although we are the city of big shoulders, we know we can't shoulder this alone. And so we want to be able to encourage you all also to help us talk to Congress people to say, we need a national solution to this. This continues to be a humanitarian endeavor, and we're trying our best to meet the moment. And so Lakeshore Hotel is another example. It did open up, like it was mentioned, back in January and March, and this time around, families will be housed at the Lakeshore Hotel, and we want to be able to inform the community of these changes, also knowing that at times the ability to share news has been delayed. I think the nature of this emergency demands that folks act and try the best to fill the need. But what I would like to stress is that cities are not traditionally used to doing resettlement at this scale. And so what we're being forced to do is create this infrastructure that just didn't exist. I see this as an opportunity to also, and it's been mentioned here today as folks in the front, the fact that there we have a lot of unhoused folks. And so I see this as an opportunity to create a infrastructure of care that's better, and we want to get it right. So we want to, we want to be able to get your questions, try our best to answer them, with the understanding that a lot of this is fluid. Buses keep arriving. We're thinking long term, and I just want to be able to share that with folks, that the whole of the city is working on this, has been working at this for a year, but with the pace of buses, with no federal remedy, we have to think creatively and look at space. And I think folks here are expressing, the lack of this is not sustainable system, and therefore the necessity of federal remedies are there. And I just want to say that we are pushing for specific asks. Things that the president could do today to help immensely would be extending TPS to Venezuelans, which is the majority of folks arriving. That could be done today, and that would put folks in place for a work permit. So I just want to be able to share that with y'all. I will come back up here, and any questions that you may have, I'll try my best to answer. Thank you.
I will say, at the onset of this humanitarian crisis, the police department was tasked with providing temporary shelter for our new arrivals population. And so with that, I will say that the police officers and the police stations all stepped up and actually embraced our new arrivals coming, and then also with our new new arrivals, the community members really stepped up as well. So at the onset, we had all these new arrivals coming to the police stations, and really the city was really working quickly to provide the support network. But then I will say the police officers, the community members really stepped up to provide that necessary support, as in clothing, food, diapers. I know that in certain stations they bought baby wipes and medication for the children that were within the station. And all that collaborative help really helps out, and this is like an ask from the police department out to the community members to help us out with this crisis as well. So at the onset, it was not that many new arrivals within our lobbies, but if you look now today, we currently have 1,650 within our police lobbies spread out throughout the city, with some of the highest numbers within our police departments. In our 12th district specifically, they have probably about 270. Several districts have over 100, and unfortunately, our lobby space isn't as large as, you know, like sometimes people envision that the lobby to be really gigantic, and those that have visited our police stations kind of realize that it is kind of a limited space where we're able to provide shelter for our new arrivals, and the need for additional shelter is really essential. So with that said, you know, we're looking for shelters throughout, and we're asking the community members to embrace helping decompress a lot of our stations. And you know, with numbers at 270, 100 plus in a lot of our stations, that need is essential. So if you think of it as our weather gets, we had a heat emergency more recently, but fall is going to be upon us soon, and winter is going to be upon us soon. And more recently, with the numbers as high as they are, we've had a lot of our new arrivals having to sleep just literally outside the lobby because of the lack of space. And so these shelters, whether they're hotels or park district facilities or even some of our community colleges, really stepped up to provide the shelter for our new arrivals. And you know, the community members and our community groups and our different city agencies have really been proactive with providing that support. We do need additional, unfortunately, additional shelter space to be able to safely house our new arrivals. With the coming winter and fall, it's going to be essential. And so with that said, we're going to be opening it up for questions, so that anybody that has any specific questions in regards to the police response or any issues in regards to some of these shelters that we do have in place, will be available to address those questions specifically. But I really do appreciate everybody coming out and really voicing their opinions on the matter, because it is essential that everybody has a voice in regards to this. Thank you.
I'm Alderperson Andre Vasquez of the 40th Ward. I was named by Mayor Johnson to be the chairman of the Committee on Immigrant and Refugee Rights. So in that capacity, I've been showing up to all the community meetings because I want to make sure we're hearing from everyone. I think I want to kind of set some understanding here. We're all from the city of Chicago, and we know historically this town's been segregated, and we have communities that haven't been invested in for decades.
And still not.
And still not. We do know. Absolutely. We have challenges that we're describing that we know people currently are going through and have been going through that live here and have lived here. That's a reality as well. Right.
Can y'all let him talk?
Yeah,
please?
it's okay. Again, I understand exactly the sentiment. What I am saying to you is, we are all in the same city, so we all know that the black community hasn't had that level of investment, hasn't had that support. We have existing people that also need housing. The reason why I say that, we want to, exactly right. We know that there have been public buildings that have been taken up. Okay. I'm more than happy to answer.
We cannot have a conversation if we're not being respectful. Sister.
Take correct.
Sister, I understand. Anybody else should go nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm just asking everybody to be a little bit quiet. I know that this is an emotional subject. Doris, come on. We're just asking. Can we just be respectful? Can we be respectful? All I'm asking is for respect. In this room, can we have a respectful discussion? Because as long as we're yelling and as long as we're screaming, and I'll add, I agree with some of y'all. Hold on.
Respected us.
Doris, in this room, we're being respectful.
But you haven't respected us.
In this room, then let's not, then we don't need to talk.
Let me just answer a couple things. It is not illegal for someone to seek asylum when they come to a country. It's not. It's not illegal. It's not. Second, it is an intentional attack on the city of Chicago to get us to be divided. It is why every single day you're seeing 80 to 100 people being sent to the city. Right now, we have over 13,000 people here. We have 6,500 of them in shelters. 1,800 of them are minors. We have about 1,600 at police stations. It is an intentional attack meant to divide people here because they don't want to see a successful Democratic Party. They want to see the president reelected. They want to see Chicago look like a disaster. But what we know is that Chicago, when there's a challenge, steps up. That's what we do here in the city of Chicago.
All right, look, hey, I thought we were going to have an orderly conversation.
I want to know, are you going to do anything about parking and congestion from the additional people? Is there going to be any property tax relief for people who moved in one neighborhood and now the neighborhood is changing? And are there going to be additional police patrols, given that there's a lot more residents per square foot, or however you want to do the math, there's going to be more people in the neighborhood. So what is the plan specifically for parking and congestion, property tax relief, because it's going to be, we're changing the neighborhood, we're doing something for you, you should be doing something for us, and additional patrols.
I can answer one of those questions, and that's the question around property tax relief. Your property taxes are handled by the county. That's a question for the Cook County assessor.
Is there a plan?
Sure. The Cook County assessors are on Wednesday.
With the additional new arrivals within the hotel system, especially over here on Lakeshore Drive, what we usually do is we continually assess crime trends and make adjustments. But with that said, there's always, in almost all of our shelter spaces, there's regular special attentions where the officers will check in on a regular basis. Almost on every watch, they'll check in with the staff, check in with security to see if there's any concerns, check the neighborhood and an area around it just to see that there's no issues that are abound. But with that said, it's a continual process. We're always conducting analysis and then making adjustments for that. But there is a special attention at all our shelter spaces.
Because of dire need at the police station, we've been actively supporting our new neighbors at police stations across the city for over 6 months with no city resources. But I just want to say thank you to all the police station response teams who have generously supported 3 meals a day, immediate blankets, medications, emergency visits, the immediate needs of these new neighbors who are coming in. But we really need to know that this is a generous city. We are a city of immigrants, whether we come from every single person who's come to Chicago, whether they come forcibly or not. But every single time that I have made a request on public platforms or private ways that I can communicate with churches, I've always received generosity from Chicago. We are united from the city. I get donations from Evanston to all the way to the south suburbs because they really see the need. We have residents, we have neighbors who are sleeping on cardboard outside of police stations. So thank you for finally making this community forum so you can hear directly from police station response teams. We have not had communication with the city. We are just starting to have that communication, and the more communication that police station response teams can have with the city, the better that we're all collaborating for the same goal.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you. Front, and when they give me the signal, I'm going to give it to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Specifically, I work downtown. I pass at least 2 sites. So to DFSS, Plymouth Court and Van Buren, that site looks like basically a bomb went off. So I'm concerned about the sites where the migrants are. And can you ensure that our lakefront is not going to become what Plymouth Court and Van Buren looks like? Who supervises them? Because we don't know what the supervision is if you go on Plymouth Court and Van Buren any time of the day. Also, what hasn't been widely broadcasted is that at least 25 officers caught the chickenpox again from the migrants on the 111 station. So who monitors their vaccination process, or is that a requirement? Is that something that we need to be concerned with in the area?
Is there somebody up here that can?
So all of our shelters have shelter rules. Upon intake, we inform all of the residents of the expectations that we have. Sorry, we have shelter rules that we implement across the sites. Anytime when we do intake with folks, we level with them expectations. We have a shelter schedule. We have a schedule at 6 a.m. our doors open, and by 11 o'clock p.m. we have curfew, and that's implemented across the sites. We do let singles and households know that they need to be in the facility by curfew. If for some reason they don't make it by curfew, depending on the circumstance, that is a curfew violation, and we will follow up with them. If we see 2 curfew violations, that would lend itself to discharge from the facility. So we also do ask them to be good neighbors. So we do ask them to please be mindful of the community that they're in, that they're mindful of the businesses and the folks and residents that have been there and that live there, and that we do need them to be respectful of the community. If we see issues, we do have residential aid staff, we have shelter management, and we have case managers. We also do have community-based organizations that are on site providing case management, and we do lean on them to help us inform residents of those expectations. Shelter rules, be a good neighbor, those are all expectations we have. And for us, it's a very simple request for them. We want them to align to our expectations, and that's what they need to do in order for them to continue to be residents in our facilities.
All right, thank you.
In regards to Plymouth Court, I will say our public safety headquarters regularly deploys a unit out there for special attention as well. With that said, we work hand in hand with DFSS in trying to educate some of our new arrivals. So as we can all understand, these are new migrants to our community, so they don't necessarily know our laws or our best practices. And with that said, right, and so they actually help acclimate and explain to them what the expectations are. As part of that Good Neighbor program that Natalia actually spoke about, it's essential. But we do have a special attention over at Plymouth and Van Buren. They're out there pretty regularly and working hand in hand with the community members there.
TC Chun?
Yes.
There will only be 300 compared to how many are going to be in this facility?
That I am not sure of.
Okay, thank you.
So my first question is, the real root of the crisis is not quote-unquote gang violence and different things. It's that the U.S. government provides sanctions on Venezuela and Cuba, keeping people from accessing their livelihood in their own country. So what will the city do to work with the federal government to actually end those sanctions and allow people to live and access medicine and food and jobs? And the second question is, we have more than enough resources in this city and in this country. We're the richest nation in the richest time in history. We can provide resources for all communities at once, and it's clear that where the positioning of folks is in order to pit black and brown folks against each other. It's very intentional, the way that this is occurring, and so how will the city both provide material reparations to black folks at the same time as resources are provided to brown folks?
Yes, part of the question, some of it was federal, right? And the Office of Deputy Mayor for Immigrant Refugee Rights is having conversations with the federal government to get work authorization and things moving. What the long term is part of those conversations. To your larger point about the fact that the funds are here to make sure everyone's getting the support they need, the budget process will be beginning in the next month and a half. You're going to see a budget forecast in September, at which point the city will have conversations about how budget dollars are spent. During that process, and even before, we want to make sure neighbors are voicing that to their elected officials to make sure they're seeing that in the budget. So as there are more processes, some from the ward level, from the city level as well, we want to make sure you continue to make your voice heard as to where you want those dollars to go. Thank you.
Hi. Some questions about, I see the people sleeping on the sidewalk in front of the police station. I don't understand why. I go to the post office downtown, it's gigantic, it's empty, it's heated. I don't understand why the federal buildings are not being used, number one. Number two, I would like to know how the other neighborhoods in Chicago are being asked to give. For example, Lincoln Park, are they also being asked to give in the same way that the south side of Chicago is being asked to give?
You're seeing people sleeping on the sidewalks outside of police stations. Highlights the scale of the problem. The police stations are actually full to the brim, to the point that you're seeing people sleep outside. That has to be part of the challenge. As to your question about why federal buildings are not being used, because it is the federal government, they're the ones that have purview. What the city's been doing is looking at the city buildings to start figuring that out. So currently, there are 16 different shelters set up in different spots in all parts of town. North, south, there's some in Andersonville, there's some on the northwest side of town. That being said, there are communities where those haven't been set up yet. What the city's looking to do is find the buildings that are able to hold 250 people or more citywide that are able to function as shelters. So they're going to continue to move that process forward.
I just wanted to name as well that the question of the federal buildings, I think it's important to note that this is not technically designated as a federal emergency by the president. And without that declaration of emergency, for example, we can't activate the Red Cross, which would typically be an agency that would act. And also on the federal buildings, because it's not a federal emergency, it deters that sort of mobilization. And on the shelters, I think it was mentioned, shelters are spread across the city. It's been a matter of capacity. Over 200 facilities have been vetted. And we have, like was mentioned, facilities in downtown, Rogers Park. So just wanted to name some of, especially the lack of a federal emergency deterring a lot of this mobilization. So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Hines Berry. My concern is about the education of the children who are here and who desperately need schooling and services. Are local schools going to be used, and what resources is the city going to provide to make sure that they have the kind of support in gaining the language and beginning to understand what's going on? Thank you.
We do have partnership with the Chicago Public Schools. Sorry. Okay, we are working with the Chicago Public Schools to ensure that all school-age children are enrolled immediately. We do have a process when folks are coming in to make sure they're enrolled. We currently do have enrollments happening for children that are currently in police stations. So when they are then transferred to shelter, we're making sure that they, if the family decides they want to continue attending the school that they were enrolled in previously, or if they want to attend the school that's closer to the shelter that's near the school that's surrounding the shelter they've been placed in, we're ensuring that connection is made. We are working with students living in temporary situations, and we are making sure that students are enrolled.
So are they using local schools?
Yes, they are. Yes.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Next question.
My name is Nancy Herring. You mentioned that immigrants have already been at Lakeshore Hotel in January and again in March. Tell me how many, please, if you can, and are they still there, or have they been processed in some way, and what was the community experience for those folks? To give us a sit. I'm not asking you. I'd like to know if there were a bump in police calls, if people, how they are moved out, what that process is. Yeah. And when do you expect to have nonprofit information available somewhere, maybe Alderman on your website for donations and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we were there in January through April of this year. We weren't seeing a surge of buses coming in every day, and so we were able to decompress some of our sites. We were able to open up additional sites, and so we were able to, while we were occupying Lakeshore and the Best Western, we were able to send folks into other shelters that we set up, and I think some of them were Wadsworth, I think some were in the Social Club. I think so at the Lakeshore we had about 120 residents, and then with the Best Western, I think we had a total of 380, and so that was our occupancy there.
So many in one place. And police at one time.
Okay, next question. And then before you ask your question, I'm going to ask the following folks to get in line, please. Martine, Doris Lewis, Bridget Maniates, Joe Kirsten, and Linda Tuttle. Oh, and Robert Carroll.
I just want to go a little broader, just for a bit, and we are all familiar with the saying that the rich get richer while the poor pay the price, right? And I believe that what's going on here is an example of that. It's an example of the rich people trying to pit black against white, against Latinx, and they want us to fight each other. They want us to fight each other instead of fighting against the real people that hold power in this country. And it's not just there, a lot of them are white, that's true, but there's also a lot of poor white people, and I don't know why I'm getting into an argument with you about that. But anyway, moving on. So my question is, what is going on in Venezuela that causes people to make this long, arduous trip all the way up here because they are looking for a better life? What are the conditions there that are forcing people to come here?
All right, thank you for your question. A comment.
Mass migration from Central South American countries as well as other ones, because the U.S. intervened in those countries in the 70s and 80s to make as much profit as they could make. They destabilized those governments, and you're seeing that happen. The other factor that you're seeing is climate change. You're going to see more migration as the world keeps getting hotter, and that's a lot of the situation and why we're working to address it.
All right, next question. Or just yell, and we can leave it 8. In Chicago my whole life, I know this. But what's missing is that if we're yelling these comments, the other folks can't hear your pain or hear your question. So this is why we're asking for an early process. I know the stuff y'all got to say and agree with most of it. But if they can't hear you, they can't agree with it either. Okay?
Hi, I'm Lucy Ascoli. My husband and I live in a high-rise, 1/2 a block from the shelter, or the proposed shelter. We believe that every community should support the asylum seekers. But I have a question for my neighbors. My neighbors want to know, some of them, what organization will be running the shelter so that we can get in touch with them to coordinate with them and support the people who are there.
So the Department of the Department of Family and Support Services will be managing the facility, and we have partnership with Favorite Staffing, and they're providing the staffing for us to manage the facility 24/7.
Next question, please.
I have a few questions.
Yeah, 90 seconds. 90 seconds for the response.
Okay,
too. Keep that in mind.
Okay, all right.
Okay, go ahead.
So my first question is, I don't understand why we didn't know that they were already living in the Lake Shore. Okay, that one just came up because I didn't know, and I live right across the street. So, okay, I didn't know that, and I feel as though we should have been informed of that. Okay, we should have been informed. Okay. My second question is there some type of vetting process in place? I mean, how do we know that these are not criminals coming into our community? You know, they're coming into our community. Are there rules? Because your list, the paper that you passed out, doesn't mention anything about guns or other weapons, or I think it does mention illicit drugs, but it doesn't mention anything about weapons, guns, you know, and what's the other ones? Do you have that? Oh, okay, I can't remember the other one. Well, yeah, sex trafficking too, you know,
So if
molesters.
Her two questions. One, like, How do we know who's coming? And then the first question, or how do we know who's here, rather? And then the second question, or which was actually your first question, is why didn't we find out about what was happening in the spring? I was not alderman then, but I don't know if there's anybody here from the city that can speak to why folks didn't find out about it until people were already here. And to your point, where is the transparency? Which is why.
Later on, because we're not going to go.
Okay, I mean, that's appreciated. I found out on Wednesday, called a meeting immediately. I don't know what happened before I got here. But in the spirit of transparency, this is why we're in the room, because I felt it was important for community members to know what was going on in their neighborhood, even if the mayor's office wasn't willing to. Okay? And then can somebody speak to the vetting process, or if there's a vetting process for migrants?
Thank you for that question, ma'am. So like it was mentioned before, it is under U.S. and international law that seeking asylum is something you could do, meaning you can show up to a port of entry and say, I am seeking asylum for these reasons. There is a process in place where folks are interviewed and fingerprinted to check if there's any database flags, that they are paroled into the country for a year and have about that time frame to apply for asylum. And you're mentioning, some of the rules like not having obviously weapons and drugs. It's in their obviously in the best interest to adhere to the rules in order that the process isn't rejected. And so that process is in place at the border as it should.
I take a long time.
I'll repeat again, there is a process in place at the port of entry. That's obviously Border Patrol who's doing that vetting and paroling people in for a time frame of a year. There is a fear interview that they have to go through and then check-ins once they're here with ICE to ensure that they're in the path for potential asylum.
Thank you. Next. Okay, I'll hold on to the cards and then. Or when you hold on, y'all. When you ask your question, before you ask your question, can you mention your name so that folks know who's in the room?
My name is Doris Lewis. Well, I want to begin by saying I am absolutely livid. And you all are so hypocritical. I live right across the street from that hotel. Back in the spring when they were over there, they would be on our lawn, on our benches. I walk all the time. I'm walking around the building. What do I walk up on? 3 men urinating on the building. You call the police, you do not come. You run, you do not come. I have never been afraid as I am now because I walk a lot, I walk around my building. I am afraid. I don't want them there. Take them someplace else or send them back to Venezuela. I don't care where they go. This is wrong. You got 73% of the people homeless in this city are black people. What have you done for them? What are you doing for the thousands of black children who are not in school? Nothing. Nothing. And let me make it, we are not immigrants. I am a descendant of enslaved Africans who built this damn country. And they are not doing fair by black people in this city or in this country, period. We're tired of this. We are asylum seekers. We should be seeking because you're running us off the land. Everywhere there's a large collection of black people.
Come on. We got your message, Doris. We got your message. All right, we got your message. Who's up next? Hold on. Can we get a little bit more order in the room, please?
You're out of order.
I disagree.
You're not representing. You black politicians. You don't represent us. You represent everybody.
Thanks, Doris. Can we bring it down so that Doris, we were respectful during your comments. Could you be respectful? Doris, come on. We all are angry. We all are angry. Can we have this conversation respectfully? We hear you. We hear you. Hold on a minute. Doris, come on. Doris, we understand. Doris, we understand. We understand, but can we make space for everybody else to talk? Can we please make space for everyone else to talk? There are a lot of opinions in the room, and yelling and devolving into chaos isn't going to get us anything. Can y'all take that somewhere else, please? No. If you came to this meeting to get information and to tell people about your thoughts and concerns, let's have that conversation. If you came to this meeting just to yell, because and mind you, like I said, hold on, wait. You can protest all you want. What I'm saying is, what I am asking respectfully is that the people who have notes and would like to make comments to the room have the time to make their comments to the room. Because there are several in this room that have monopolized the time that we have here, and that is disrespectful, okay? I've been protesting for 20 years. I know how to protest, okay? All I'm asking is that we have this conversation that we're trying to have today. Next question, please.